Good
I have to
morning.
consent to recording. Yes. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning. My name's Mark DeGarmo, and with me this morning is Eva Yaa Asantewaa, and we are speaking together on Friday, July 24th, 2020 at around 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time in the United States on planet Earth. And I am so very honored that Eva, you're here speaking with us, with me, and with the people who will be watching this today. I know you're so busy, you're so in demand in New York City, I'm sure across the US and the globe with all of your wisdom, support. And my first question is really if you would kindly introduce yourself, your biography, because it's so layered and deep and beautiful and inspiring. And then also what part of planet Earth you're calling in from today.
Okay, let me start from that. And thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. It's great to finally get a chance to chat with you. You are a good Facebook friend of mine, but we've never actually met in person. So that we'll have to take care of that. Thank you. My name is Eva Yaa Asantewaa, and right now I am dialing in from the East Village, which is part of Lenapehoking. So this is stolen land. And I also want to acknowledge that there is probably no part of the United States that not only was under the stewardship of indigenous people, but there is no aspect of the United States that was not built up as a result of people who were enslaved, my ancestors. I want to acknowledge both of those aspects of our history. I am, for those who would like to know, um, 60, almost 68-year-old Black woman. I have a nearly shaved head. I am wearing eye makeup and no lipstick because, we're doing masks these days, so I've had to give that up largely. I'm wearing a Snoopy t-shirt, and I'm sitting in my home office with a bookcase of lots of books behind me. I think that's all I want to say about, descriptions, visual description. Um, let's see, what else did you ask me, Mark?
Well, I'm so curious if there's parts of your own biography, professional
Oh,
biography you
yes.
might share for us.
Sure, sure. Okay, so I've been a dance writer for, wow, since I first published in 1976 and first published in in Dance Magazine and in the Village Voice and in a number of other publications. I have been running a blog, which is largely a dance blog, but not exclusively, but it is an arts blog called Infinite Body for a good number of years as well. And on occasion have done podcasts. But Infinite Body continues on as my dear love. And I am also a staff member at Gibney. I'm the Senior Director of Artist Development and Curation. And I also will be launching for Gibney a journal coming this September called Imagining a Gibney Journal. And I'm the editorial director for that. I've been working at Gibney since 2018, July of 2018,
Mm.
primarily as their senior curatorial director, but the new titles have come about in the past couple of months, along with some new responsibilities. I started out pretty much as a poet, and I brought my poet sensibility to my dance writing.
Mm.
I was very much in love with dance since I was a child, but I was not encouraged by anyone in my family, nor did I have any role models for becoming professional in the field. But I was always a writer since I was a kid, and brought both of those interests and those deep loves together to do what I ended up doing, which has been a remarkable ride. I have a Bessie Award for my work in the community. I also, thank you. I'm very proud to know that one of my curations that I did for Dance Space Project, the artists, the 21 remarkable Black artists in that production, which was an improvisation. I know that that's something very near and dear to you. Um, Also won a Bessie Award for outstanding performance. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I can mention, but those are the top ones.
Like I said, there's a lot of layers there, and
Yeah.
again, I'm thank you. It's so wonderful to hear a teeny bit of your biography. We'll have to go to your Wikipedia page to even learn a little bit more.
I don't have a Wikipedia page yet.
Not yet.
But if you go to Infinite Body, which would be infinitebody.blogspot.com, you will find somewhere on the right side, there will be a link to my bio. And you can get all the information, even further back than that on that. If you go to infinitebody.com, you will find a tattoo business. So that's the wrong one. That's not mine.
Okay. It's a great name across fields and domains.
Oh, yeah.
But that's great. And then we can also link to more of your work, your written work, which I know a lot of our scholars. I know we have people looking in. As I was mentioning earlier, I'm involved with a research project in autoethnography with 185 global scholars. And we're working on a series of writing and publication and performance projects. They're going to be part of one of our salons this fall, actually, as well, those that are in the performance side. And I know that they will want to know more about your work, Eva, to be able to cite you and refer to your work.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very important. Yeah. One of the questions I have is, the series is called Creativity and Creative Practice. We launched it before George Floyd's murder on, I believe it was May 25th of 2020 in Minneapolis. And we had 3 interviews that were already scheduled to go. And we did release those. And then at that point, I wanted to really speak up also with colleagues, Black colleagues, other colleagues of color, colleagues across the intersectionality of identity. And, but given that, I also originally was asking people, if you might compare and contrast your own creative process pre-COVID-19 and the lockdown we've experienced in New York City and New York State and the parts of the US, and what's been different during this period in your process and practice.
That is so important. I think that my process was a little bit starved because I tend to be a person whose work is in service of other creative people. And working at Gibney also is a beast because it's like a lot of coordination of many different artists and their needs and so forth. And so the team that I was working with at that point, performance and residencies. Now I'm outside of that team. I have my own thing going on. But that team was responsible for so much coordination of all kinds of events. So I don't think that I was that in touch with my creativity then, except in a sort of a secondary way that when you do curate, it means that you are being creative in a sense because you are creating a bridge between an artist and an audience. And in a sense also between an artist and an organization, and then an artist and the audience. So it was that kind of creativity. But since then, first of all, I had to sort of step back and say, like a lot of people, I am frightened, I am scared, I am tired, I am frustrated, and I have to respect those various aspects of myself and my psyche and my physical being and take care of that before producing, because we get into this whole thing about the artist has to produce a certain product by a certain time in a particular way. The presenters want that, the funders need to see that, the audiences are clamoring for it, whatever, the critics are scrutinizing it. And it's something that I think a lot of people took a step back and said, do we really want to work this way? Can we do it? Because do we have the energy at this point? And a lot of people honored their need for rest. And I think I did that for a while. And in fact, there's one thing that you might find on my blog where I talk about the need for grieving, because I was definitely, as a curator, definitely grieving the effects of, this is even before the murder of George Floyd and other things that we experienced. Just what happened as a result of the shutdown to my organization, my work, my organization, and the field in general was a tremendous, deadly loss that we're still grappling with, So there was that, and then came the horror of George Floyd's murder, which, so many of us saw. We witnessed it via video, taking a tremendous toll in people in different ways, certainly for Black people, although this is not something that we would, be surprised by. It is still something that takes a tremendous toll on the physical body, on the psyche, on the emotions in many ways. So I feel like there was a point at which a lot of us decided that we couldn't, first of all, we would, those of us who were working in live performance, we suddenly had to figure out a way to work with the technology that, thank goodness, we have that's in place for an emergency like this. And yet, we still had to struggle with, what does that say about the arts? And what does it say about the work that we're doing, and our relationship to audiences, and our relationship, if we are artists, to the other artists that we work with in closed settings, normally reading their energy, catching their energy and working with that interchange. And what does it mean if we don't have audiences near us to, again, catch what we're doing and so forth? And I don't even know why I say we, because I'm not a performer, but I somehow always feel so connected to the mindset of the artist that I feel like I'm almost there, I think that some of the creativity that has come out and has been funneled through the internet has been remarkable. And some of it has been just like, okay, reactive, or okay, we've got to do something. And what I'm interested in and I'm waiting for is what's going to come somewhere down the line when people have really processed a lot of this stuff, the brutality, the social distancing that keeps us apart from one another, the ridiculousness coming out of the White House. Yes, we can quickly respond, but what happens when we have really processed all of that, taken the time, put it all together, connected the dots? What is the art that's going to come out as a result of that? I think it's going to be fierce. I think it's going to be kick-ass. I think it's going to be brilliant. I think it's going to be very demanding. And it's going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. And so I'm interested in that. What I'm not so interested in is, oh, hey, here we are in these Zoom boxes, playing around in our apartments. Some of that, okay, so fantastic. Others, so much. So what? I mean, we're not really doing anything but coping, which is okay. It's okay to be coping with the reality, but something more is going to emerge, and that's really where I think the interest and the heat will be. For myself, I found on occasion going back to poetry. A few poems have come out of this, and they've been placed certain places. I wouldn't say that that's my major focus. Creatively, actually, two things. One is that journal, which I have to give Gina Gibney some credit for because it was really her idea to have a space, to create a space for quality writing on dance and performance in New York. And I sort of took that idea and I ran with it. So what's going to come in September, I can tell you, I can give you a preview, is extremely the nature of the revolutionary tenor of our times. We've got some really good writers who are really delving into that and exploring that. And that's kind of in the direction we're going to be going in. Very political, very social justice oriented, very much about voices that perhaps have not been heard before. You know, eventually we want to really bring up and promote some new writers. And I'm very excited about that. And then the other thing that I've created, which has not really been formally announced, but I will talk about it a little bit here. I was working on it this morning, is a group, a support and networking group for emerging Black artists in the dance and performance area. And it's going to be called Black Diaspora. And the way it's working out so far as I continue to organize, it looks like it's going to be two groups, two intimate groups. They will have discussion and they will have guest visiting artists on Zoom for the next several months. And then if this pilot program is successful and we are able to get resources for it, I hope that over the next few years, it will gradually develop into a full-fledged residency program. It is currently being supported by Gibney, but we will see what happens with all of that. But I can tell you that it's really something that I have tremendous hope for. And the artists who were, by the way, they were all recommended by various Black artists in the dance and performance field who I deeply respect. And I asked them for a few names of people who I could reach out to. And I got a good number of folks who responded, and I'm going to get, you know, a good number of them involved in this. I'm hoping that I can keep the group that is starting off this year into the next year when I ideally will have more goodies to offer, you know, including things like residency space and, you know, access to resources and so forth and so on. And maybe even connections to artists who are beyond the dance and performance field. So it's across disciplines and to activists and things of that nature. So when I think about my creativity, it doesn't always show up as, you know, a poem or, you know, certainly not dance, although I studied dance for a number of years and really love dancing. But it shows up often in the way in which I can organize things and people and make space for people. I also have a history with spirituality and with ritual. So that kind of filters into it as well.
Absolutely. Well, the richness of the work that we all do, the movement work, the work of the Black diaspora as well, is so deeply rich and layered and transcultural as well. So it sounds like such an amazing base, Eva, that you're bringing forth. This project with emerging artists is so exciting, so deeply needed. I know in New York City, one of the perennial challenges, having been there my whole adult life, is space. And increasingly so as we've become more gentrified, in my opinion. You know, we're working on the Lower East Side at the Clemente Center for 19 years now, speaking of anniversaries. And congratulations.
That's a long time. That's a lot of time, sure.
Oh, it is, yeah. And congratulations to you on your 2 years at Gibney. And
thank you.
Gina and I were buddies in the day, you know, with Jocelyn Lorenz back, you know,
Oh,
way
yes.
back, way back when.
Yes. Yeah, she talks about Jocelyn a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think in terms of space, it's a funny thing. We've learned that space is not only physical, but it also is access to things like what we're doing right now.
Mhm.
And I have to, even though some things are more successful and appealing than others, I have to give a shout out to my good buddy Charmaine Warren,
Mhm.
who is doing a new project called Black Dance Stories. In fact, I was there watching it last night on YouTube. And what she's been able to do is to get two, just as we're having a conversation here on Zoom, get two really remarkable guest artists together to first one person talk, tell a story from their experience, and then the two get together to talk with one another, conversation, and
Mhm.
then the second person have their moment to give their story, and then bring them back again, and they get questions from the watchers. Um,
Mhm.
there's something so, I mean, you can use this technology in a so-so way, or you could use it in a really vibrant way. And what has really zoomed through is just the vibrancy and the vulnerability and the remarkableness of these artists. It's informal, but it can also be very intense too, and very revealing. And I swear I have never seen anything like that since the pandemic started, that is so just so rich and so appealing and so charismatic and so real. And it just gives us an idea of where we can go with this, to the extent that yes, when we get together again, so important to get together and get in proximity, physical proximity to one another, and we can hug one another because we're a very huggy community. There still is something about what we've learned from this that can be remarkable and continued, I think. And I think Charmaine is showing a good example of that.
Well, thank you for that, Eva. I think we need this so much to hear these words from you, this wisdom coming from your experience and
Thank
your,
you.
you know, your communitarian focus and deep concern for others, your non-logocentric, non-egocentric orientation to assist the field and practitioners and people emerging and sustaining careers. You know, it's really powerful. And again, I'm so grateful to you for the work you're doing on behalf of all of us. So thank you
Thank you.
for that.
Thank you. And it's all because, and I've always said this and I will always say that whatever I am now, I've learned from the artists I've seen and I've worked with. You've all taught me. And I hope I've learned my lesson well, and I hope that I can, whatever I share is out of that.
Thank you for that stance, that humility, and you know, it's beautiful. Thank you. It's so important. You're a great example. This discourse is such an important one for our fields. You know, I think sometimes the Western discourse of the singular artist as genius, you know, eliminates the possibility that there's a context, and there's been so many voices lost sometimes when you see that finished work. And yet we
Mm-hmm.
know that other traditional cultures where dance is created, or you know, it's part of ritual, it's part of community expression of reality and understanding of life cycles. And so there isn't necessarily a singular choreographer that's credited with that work, that or that experience, that physical experience, those dances. So it's to me, this is a fascinating opportunity for us all to keep growing and to decolonize dance more and more across the country, our training practices and our understandings of what it is in a bigger way, what is dance in a much bigger, broader, richer way to benefit us all.
Absolutely. Our values are shifting. We're forced to shift them, but I think that they will shift organically. as we all continue to absorb knowledge about what the truth is and what's going on here. And we need to also, in the middle of all of this, think in terms of building. What are we going to build from these new values, or from these recaptured values, these reaffirmed values? How can we learn from one another, and how can we do it with love, with generosity? You know,
There's the true
that's
subversion
what
of the
builds.
moment.
That's what builds. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, excuse me for talking over you. That's sort of the, Maxine Greene, the great educational philosopher that was called the John Dewey of our times before she passed, would talk of the subversiveness of the arts. And, I think that can be misunderstood in the United States, unfortunately,
Yes.
because
Yes.
but nonetheless, I think that, I often, in terms of the so what question, we'll hold that as one of the criteria, perhaps, that there's like a disruption or the opportunity for alternative narratives to be coming forward than the mass marketed cultural narrative of our times.
Yes. Yes.
Another question, Eva, and I, obviously referenced it right away at the top of our conversation, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on perhaps, whether it's the intersectionalities, of the moment, but also the importance of the discourse between the Black Lives Matter movement and what we in the dance field might bring to maybe that moment, but also to bringing forward more understanding across our own communities and audiences and the people perhaps that our works are directed toward, or our direct audiences we're trying to reach when we're creating what we create.
Well, I think sometimes we have to kind of work internally first and ask ourselves if, with the various sectors of the dance community that don't necessarily talk to one another, are we fostering that communication first?
Wow.
So there's that problem that I think we need to, are the tap folks talking to the contemporary folks? Are the ballet folks talking to the folks doing contemporary work? Are they talking to the folks doing African traditional dance? Do we know about one another? Do we value one another? Do we know the legacies? And just in terms of that kind of thing, I don't know if you saw it, but there's this remarkable documentary called Uprooted, which was part of the Dance on Camera Festival, which of course was online this year. I don't know if it's still, let's see, we might actually still be able to see part of that. That is about jazz dance, about the legacy of jazz dance and the issues that field, that part of our sector has in getting the recognition that is so much tied into the lack of knowledge of the contributions of Black people to American culture. Any problems that we have with not kind of getting what jazz dance is about is tied into that. Also tap dance, tied into the fact that we don't know our history. We don't value the folks who have contributed, and we need to kind of get that information and to understand where things come from and how they're connected. So it's about, oh God, this thing is like, so there's so much. The American educational system is faulty in a lot of ways in terms of really recognizing and educating folks about the contributions of certain sectors of our society. So we can start there, and then we can look at feels like dance and understand that we're not understanding one another, we're not talking to one another, we're not honoring the history and bringing through the legacy the way that we could. You know, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done across the board. That, and you know, I'm babbling here, but I will just take everybody back to that particular documentary, whether you access it as part of Dance on Camera, which may already be over. I think maybe it was over yesterday. But if you can find that documentary any other way, it is vitally important. It is brisk, it is vibrant, it is so appealing, it is chock full of information. It really talks about people that most people don't know about. They don't know their contribution, but they are absolutely seminal to the development of jazz dance, Broadway dance, you name it. You know, a lot of stuff going on is all interconnected with that. Hip hop, all interconnected from African forms through what we're doing and seeing and enjoying today, and what's making money today, or what's not making money. You know, it's all connected. But do we know that? Do we talk about that? Do we care about that? Do we put that in our, oh, that's another thing. Do we put that in our academic dance programs? Do we have it at Gibney necessarily? Even? You know, we have to get real about these things that we're not paying attention to. And then we can talk about the fact that we're not necessarily communicating all that well with people outside of dance. And we wonder why we're you know, economically challenged constantly. When we have a society that needs to kind of figure needs some help to understand how vitally important the art of dance is to everything.
I love it, Eva. This is a brilliant.
I could rant on, but I will not take up your time doing that. I will
Well, I
not.
hope we'll take up some time another time as well, because I think there's so much more to talk about. And obviously, with your experience, it would be very rich to hear more in depth. Maybe, you know, we're almost toward the end of our time together this morning, but the last thing I'm wondering is, and you've already touched on this quite a bit, but just maybe some final thoughts for the emerging artists, the youth, even the children today, um, and our Black youth, of course, as well. What words you may give them at this time?
Oh yeah, yeah. Just if you, well, if the art of dance is what you're working in, because you could be working in so many other things in addition to dance or exclusively, just go for it. You know, look around you and find the role models that I didn't have. You know, I didn't have them in my family. I didn't recognize them out in the world until it was kind of too late for me to kind of get into it professionally. There are role models out there for you. There is affirmation for you. If you want to dance, do it. Do it with your entire heart, because it really is something that belongs to us as a people. It's part of our heritage. It's not even about doing it professionally, but it's part of our culture to do it as part of who we are as a people. We express ourselves. We worship our deities. We heal ourselves and one another. We honor ourselves and one another through dance, through music, through poetry, through storytelling. It's part of who we are. Let us affirm it, no matter how you choose to do it. Affirm it and go forward with it. We need you. We are desperate to have you be yourself. That's the thing. We want you to be yourself, your full self, no matter what that means, no matter what the identity is behind that. We all need you to be yourself, to come through. And I'm excited about that, because every time somebody expresses themselves, it frees me a little bit more as a person. It teaches and it feeds me, and it's not just me. So our world needs you.
Eva, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. Eva Asantewaa, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you so much, Mark, and I wish you a beautiful day.
You as well.